What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Lakers Outsiders Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Gary Kester, and today I'm going to be talking about kind of a question that I've seen floating around in the off season, and that is who is going to be the X factor for the Los Angeles Lakers in the 2019-2020 NBA season. But before I dive into that, be sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to UCast Studios. We are obviously on YouTube and pretty much every platform that you can think of for any podcasting, and the same goes for Lakers Outsiders. Make sure you're subscribed, following on Twitter, liking on Facebook, all that stuff. Make sure to tune in for LakersOutsiders.com. Got all your content, news, editorials, podcasts, everything. So, all right. Let's dive into this question because it's one that a few weeks ago would have probably had, I want to say, two really popular answers. Mine is going to be one of those answers. Maybe this is consensus. I think it's an interesting discussion because I think you could probably pick a number of guys. I think the Lakers, now that DeMarcus Cousins is going to be out for the season, and he might honestly not be on the team with his legal issues off the court right now, he might just get cut, and there might not be any chance of him coming back in the playoffs or in 2 years or whatever. His future as a Laker looks pretty bleak right now. And I'm not going to comment on his legal issues because I don't know, all the facts of the case that are going on. And, I want this to, unless it's really warranted, I think, I want to keep this show focused on basketball. So, okay, back to the original question. Who will be the X factor for the Lakers this season? Like, who's that player that is going to really make or break the Lakers? To me, my pick for this is a guy that if he plays to the way I think he's capable of, the Lakers are still legitimate title contenders. If he doesn't, it's going to be really hard for them to get to that level. They'll still be good. They're still going to have LeBron James. They're still going to have Anthony Davis, Danny Green. They've got good players on the roster, but I think that Kyle Kuzma is the X factor for the Lakers this season. And let's talk about why. Obviously, really, this kind of goes without saying, but I think health is probably the number one priority for the Lakers if they want to be successful this season. They've been just decimated by injuries year after year after year, basically the last 6 years since the 2012-2013 season with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash. And Steve Nash got hurt in the second game and missed a good chunk of the year, and it seemed like they always had a key player out that season. And then the nail on the coffin was Kobe getting hurt at the very end of that season. And he was kind of never the same after that. But maybe with Dwight Howard on the team, maybe that curse will get lifted, because that seems to be when it started, when he was on the team the first time. But fingers crossed on that. And I just would love the Lakers to stay healthy just once. It's pretty much, we can already say it hasn't happened because DeMarcus Cousins is out. But from this point on, I would just love for them to stay healthy with this roster that they've got, because it's still a very, very good roster. But Kyle Kuzma, to me, is the guy that's got to make the leap this year. He's in year 3. He's very enigmatic, depending on who you ask. I think a lot of people thought he was kind of the prized possession of the Lakers' young core. He was the 27th pick. He's greatly, his value is much higher than the 27th pick, really, in pretty much any draft. But to me, this is the year for him. He was a little bit older of a prospect, so it's not like he's a one and done guy. I believe in giving guys probably about 3 to 4 seasons. So this is year 3. He was a little bit of an older prospect. But we've got to see significant growth for for Kyle Kuzma this year, and not just in a scoring sense, because I think he's a fantastic scorer. I think he's a guy that can probably score. I mean, he can really score on all three levels. He can score from three, he can score from mid range, he can get in the paint and score around the basket. He's pretty crafty, especially when he gets inside. And the mid range jumper, I don't know kind of what percentile he finished last year, but it's definitely reliable. And you don't want to leave Kuzma by himself, even though last year on wide open threes, I know he did struggle quite a bit, and his 3-point shooting did drop. And to me, I think that's probably the biggest X factor for Kuzma. I think Kuzma as a whole is the biggest X factor on this team, because I think if he makes that leap and he shows significant improvement defensively and maybe even as a playmaker and giving the Lakers another playmaker from that wing position, that's huge. That's huge for their development, because you don't want that burden to fall on just a couple guys' shoulders. Obviously LeBron's going to be basically the de facto point guard, even though I think he's essentially a 4 at this point in his career, a 3 or a 4. He's probably going to play both, but he's essentially a point guard on offense. So, but with Kuzma, the 3-point shooting, his rookie year was really solid, honestly. He shot 5.6 threes per game and hit on 36.6%. I mean, it's not like elite. I think elite 3-point shooters are usually, probably above that 40% mark, 39%. So he's, not at that, he wasn't at that level his rookie year, but 36.6% for, a guy given his position, and his versatility. Honestly, that would probably be good enough. And in his second year, shooting 30.3% from three, that's a huge drop. That's a huge drop. That's 6.3% that 3-point shooting dropped. And we're talking about a pretty high volume here, because he has been fairly consistent there. Like I said, rookie year, 5.6 threes per game, attempts per game. And then last year, it was 6 attempts per game. So the 3-point shooting has got to get back to that rookie campaign. If he can do that and get around 36, 37% on a pretty high volume, which I think he's going to shoot a pretty high volume, because I think, the reason his shooting is so important is LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to need space to operate, and you're going to need multiple shooters, I think, on the floor for that to happen. And the Lakers can, utilize some different combinations, but Kuzma's scoring ability and just his raw talent, I think, can add a pretty different dimension to this team's offense, and can help them defensively if he makes kind of a fairly significant leap on that end as well. The Lakers in past year under Luke Walton like to switch a lot of things, and with Kuzma, if he is solid on defense, that allows them to do some things like that. I don't know what Frank Vogel's scheme is going to be like exactly. When he was with the Pacers, it was more, it kind of shows you how far the game has come in such a short period of time, but they had kind of your traditional 2 big lineup with David West as the 4 and Roy Hibbert as the 5. I would imagine the Lakers are still going to utilize that quite a bit with JaVale and Dwight Howard. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard at the 5, Anthony Davis at the 4, LeBron at the 3. But I still think that the Lakers' best lineup this year is going to include LeBron at the 4 and Davis at the 5, because I think offensively that's going to give them a lot of space to operate, especially considering you're probably going to have Danny Green out there, and then depending on who the other 2 players are, if it's Kuzma and say Alex Caruso, who to me is the best point guard on the roster ahead of Rondo and Quinn Cook. Cook might be a more reliable shooter, even though Caruso did shoot the ball fairly well, shot it pretty well last season. but he's kind of been a little up and down shooting. So hopefully that becomes a little more consistent. But if you have, say, Kuzma shooting at 36% from three next to Danny Green, Anthony Davis, and LeBron, and then whoever in that fifth spot, that allows so many different things for the Lakers to do offensively. I mean, Green is going to probably be that guy that you want to spot up shoot, and I think you can move to the strong or weak side if you run kind of a two-man game with LeBron and Anthony Davis, which I'm sure you're going to see probably a pretty decent amount of LeBron handling the ball and Davis setting high pick and roll, or those two running high pick and roll action. But in order for that to be effective, you got to have shooters to be able to space the floor and force defenders to make decisions and make them react and make them, kind of think, do I drop down and have to cover all this ground to tag Davis as the roll man? And do I leave Danny Green wide open? Do I leave Kyle Kuzma wide open? You have to make them kind of think that. Or, do I stay home on the shooters and hope that, the next guy is going to rotate over and stop Anthony Davis from, diving to the basket, or LeBron coming off a screen and getting downhill? Because, when LeBron gets downhill, it's game over. You're just probably not going to stop him unless you put him on the free throw line, which, that's that's always an adventure, especially last season with LeBron at the free throw line. Hopefully it's a little better this year, but once he's going downhill, he's so tough to stop. But you also have the threat of Anthony Davis, flaring out and being a pick and pop big and being able to shoot from the outside. We've seen him work on his 3-point shooting and extending his range. At the very least, his range does go out, even close to the 3-point line. He can hit 20-footers, 15, 20-footers. Like that's a good weapon in his game. I don't know how many threes exactly he'll shoot this year, but I know he's capable of making them. Davis has a good stroke, and it just makes him such a nightmare to guard. Do you put a traditional big on him and force him to have to contest those threes all the way out on the perimeter? And if guys are doing that, then Davis can dribble drive and just do a number of things. Especially if a team goes small, you can throw it to him in the post. But anyways, back to Kuzma. The reason why I think the 3-point shooting is so important is because it gives those stars room to operate. And it'll also free up things for him. I think Kuzma naturally wants to probably put the ball on the deck and get going downhill and go towards the basket. And it's going to be a lot easier for him to do that if, say the Lakers are running that pick and roll game with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and you've got Danny Green on one spot of the floor, beyond the 3-point line, spacing the floor, and you've got Kuzma on another. And say LeBron whips a skip pass over to Kyle Kuzma, and it forces his man, who is probably kind of sagging into the paint a little bit, to try and tag the roll man, or at least be in that sort of position. That gives Kuzma a lot of opportunities to either have open threes, or if his man's closing out or the help's closing out, whoever rotates over and closes out hard, that allows him to put the ball on the deck. And at that point, it's either, he's got to be able to finish, whether it's, a mid-range pull-up, getting to the basket, throwing lobs to LeBron, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, whoever. That's where the playmaking comes in. I think he's going to have those opportunities where he can get into the paint and he can, kind of break a defense down. And then at that point, it's about making the right reads. But I think that the shooting is what's going to open that up. If he can even shoot 35%, he just can't shoot what he did last year. Last year was very frustrating. He had some games that he was red hot. And when he gets red hot, he's such a dangerous scorer. He's lethal. And I'm curious to see how the new shot translates. For those of you who haven't really followed much on, the offseason, Kyle Kuzma has been working with a shooting coach and has changed the shot form pretty noticeably. He really kind of shot with the ball right in front of his forehead. And not much in front of his forehead. It looked like, honestly, kind of made contact with his forehead area. on his shot. And now the ball is a little more extended away from his body, away from his head. It's kind of above his head. And the shot looks really good. We saw a glimpse of it with the Team USA play, and he had a game against Australia, that first game that they won, that the shot looked really good, and he shot well from three. So I'm hoping, it might start out slow because it is a new shot form for him, and that's really tough to kind of unlearn your previous shot and not revert back to that because it's what's comfortable. But if he can stick to this and stick to his new shot form, and he can shoot a high percentage, man, that just opens up so much. The Lakers can be much more efficient and effective team offensively if he's an effective 3-point shooter, because that's going to create opportunities for him to dribble drive past hard closeouts and be able to make plays. And if his playmaking is is up to par, and I thought we saw some minor improvements with that last year. I thought showed flashes of some things that we didn't see his rookie year. So if that continues to improve, his feel for the game just continues to get better, and the game kind of slows down for him, that's a big development for his offense. Defensively, like I said, if he gets better at that, it allows the Lakers to be so versatile, not only on offense but on defense as well, because it allows, if they want to go with a scheme that requires them to switch a lot of things, and they want to go with those lineups, because even if Anthony Davis is your 5, LeBron's your 4, Kuzma's your 3, which I think Kuzma at this point now is much more of a 3 than a 4. I know a lot of people still think he's a 4, but for some reason, I think he defends better on the perimeter than he does in the post. I don't know if it's a strength thing or what, but his lateral quickness really isn't bad, in my opinion. So I think he's more of a 3 with LeBron at the 4. I don't think you want to play. We definitely can't play Kuzma at the 5. I think we learned that last year. Trying to do that and really LeBron at the 5, has to be very sparingly used. So, yeah, Kuzma to me, because of the different skill set at his size, his speed, just all of that, it allows him to be so versatile on both ends of the floor that he can be a really dangerous weapon for the Lakers, but he still needs to improve. He's obviously not going to be red hot every game. Like, we kind of see him go off every once in a while. He was a pretty, like I said, he's a damn good scorer. That did improve. He scored 16.1 points per game as a rookie, 18.7 points per game last year. His field goal percentage as a whole improved just a little bit. Free throw percentage went up by 5%, which was good, which is kind of weird. Usually free throw percentage is a decent indicator on 3-point success. More so, I guess, from college to the NBA. But his 3-point percentage really dropped, but his free throw percentage went up. So hopefully the shot comes around, because that opens up just a bevy of options for him and the Lakers. Plus, I'd like to see Kuzma be a part of that closing lineup. To me, I think the closing lineup, if I had to guess right now, I would probably say Alex Caruso. Maybe I'm buying too much on the Caruso hype. I don't know. I really like Caruso, though. I think he's just really, really solid, and he's the best point guard on the roster. Although they could certainly go with guys like Avery Bradley, KCP to chase around point guards defensively while LeBron plays point guard on offense. But I want Kuzma to be part of that closing 5-man lineup. And this is assuming that he shows improvement in these areas. But I would like to see a lineup of like Caruso, Danny Green, Kuzma, LeBron, and Anthony Davis close out like the last 6 minutes of a game, of a tight game. I think that lineup would work really, really well together, both defensively and on the offensive end of the court. So, Kyle Kuzma, this is going to be his age 24 season. He's to me, he's the guy. He's the guy that's going to kind of dictate how far the Lakers go this year. They're going to go as far as LeBron and Anthony Davis can probably take them. Obviously you ride your superstars, but Kuzma is going to be that guy to me that can help get them to that next level. And he wants to be that third star. He said as much this offseason. I think he can do it. I really think that he can, but there's definitely got to be some pretty noticeable improvements in certain areas. So it's going to be huge. The Lakers are going to need a lot of guys to step up, though. With DeMarcus Cousins out, Dwight Howard's going to have to step up, and he's going to have to buy into his role. And I talked about him extensively on the last episode, so be sure to check that out. But I mean, a lot of these guys are going to have to step up. Avery Bradley's going to have to step up, play good defense, and be at least a respectable 3-point shooter. Same thing with KCP. He's got to be good defensively, and he's got to be more consistent offensively. He's got to improve his decision making and be at least be an above average 3-point shooter consistently. So you can go on down the list probably of guys that got to step up. But to me, Kyle Kuzma is going to be that guy that really kind of shows us how far the Lakers can go. If he makes that leap that I think he's definitely capable of, the Lakers have a legit shot to win the West and win a championship, in my opinion. If not, it's going to be a lot more difficult. You're going to have to ask a lot out of LeBron and Anthony Davis. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's all I'm going to talk about today. On the next episode, next week, I am going to do a mailbag podcast. So if you have any questions that you would like answered, they can be, ideally they'd be about the Lakers, but I'll answer general NBA questions if you have them. I'll answer random questions, food, movies, TV, I don't care. Send me your questions. You can either follow me on Twitter at Gary Kester, just my first and last name. You can follow the Lakers Outsiders on Twitter as well. But so I'll be getting them from Twitter, but you can also leave them in the comments below. Like I said at the start, make sure you subscribe so that you can, hit these podcasts as soon as they drop, especially those mailbag ones, because I will try to get every single question that I can. Usually it's just me on these things, so I should have time to get to all the questions. So leave your questions in a comment on YouTube or send them to me on Twitter. Again, that's at Gary Kester, or you can do it at Lakers Outsiders. And that's going to be the show next week. We're finally in September. We're hitting September, which means training camp starts this month. Preseason is like the light is at the end of the tunnel, man. We can see it. It's almost here. Let's get this offseason over with because I'm ready for some good Lakers basketball, and I'm ready to see Anthony Davis and Kyle Kuzma and LeBron and all these guys together. And as a North Carolina guy, I've been waiting to see Danny Green in a Laker uniform, so I'm very happy I get to see that. So yeah, like I said, get those questions in, leave them in the comments, or hit me up on Twitter, and I will definitely get around to those on next week's show. Okay, like I said at the start of the pod, be sure you're following Lakers Outsiders on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and you can get all of Lakers Outsiders content on LakersOutsiders.com. And be sure you subscribe to Lakers Outsiders and UCast Studios on YouTube and all the podcast platforms, Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, all that. So, all right, that is going to do it for us today, and looking forward to answering your guys' questions next week. And until then, this is Gary Kester signing off.